What you talking about?
I've kind of abandoned it, but not on purpose, Mandalorian Time Machine. It just disappoints me to mention it now.
Well, is that going to be about the new series or something else?
No. Specifically it was a play on words I had years ago regarding like Mandalorian and the Time Machine and Back to the Future being a DeLorean. And it was going to be a blog thing actually when I was thinking about ending the Groundhog Day project after like a year. I was going to do another one where it was just like what Groundhog Day project became is where I watched other movies and wrote about them. And then as a podcast, it was where do I talk about the other movies that don't fit into these shows? Where I can just like review something. Mm-hmm. But then all of that energy went into Mandy Sucks Minute because right as I had just started Mandalorian Time Machine, I unfortunately, with the help of Sean, who we mentioned last episode or the one before, came up with the idea to do Mandy Sucks Minute. And all of that, especially negative energy, was channeled into that show. Now that show's over, maybe I'll do new episodes. I haven't had a new episode since August, so I've been kind of neglecting it.
Are you worried?
I really want to do a review of Joker.
Oh, good. I want to see it. I have not seen it yet, but I hear it's fantastic.
Well, I won't say much other than I didn't like it.
Oh, really?
I actively hated it as I was watching it. Like, I did not like watching it. And then that same day, this is what I do on Fridays a lot, is I'll see multiple movies in a row. I saw 2 other movies that I loved and were happy and fantastic movies, and then I didn't feel like recording anything when I got home. I'm like, okay, fine. And then I meant to get to it later, and then I'm like, I should watch it again. I'm like, I don't want to watch it again. No. And then other people were doing reviews, and like people were giving good and bad opinions all over the place, and a lot of good ones that annoyed the crap out of me. And then I'm like, but I don't need to go be negative in that show and do a episode again, ranting about that. I even recorded like a 10-minute thing, and then I'm like, I didn't like it. Like the thing I recorded. I'm like, I don't know.
I need to see it. The biggest thing is I want to see it for the performance. I keep hearing what a great job.
Oh, the performance is amazing.
Yeah. And that to me as an actor, and then of course a side director, but the things I direct tend to be more industrial type projects, but just in the idea of seeing somebody's vision of Joker come to life, I'm interested in seeing it. And I wasn't when I first saw the very first teaser. I was like, oh, come on, a standalone Joker movie?
Yeah.
And now the buzz about it is enough. I really want to check it out, if anything, for the performance.
It is worth seeing. I'm actually tempted to talk about it on the Room Minute because on Fridays we do a bad movie worth watching. And I don't do one every week because you depend on the guests to bring one. But I brought one of every few episodes. I'll bring one. And I'm tempted to throw that one in there as a bad movie worth watching because it is definitely worth seeing, even if you don't like it. I mean, I'm glad I saw it, and I'm like, that I know what people are talking about.
But when you say bad movie, is it a bad movie because it's a terrible movie, or is it bad because you just don't care for it?
I don't.
Like, was it shot
Since you haven't seen it, I don't want to answer that question.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Fair enough.
It is a well-made film.
Okay. So it's one of those movies that's, whatever direction it chose, the storyline it took, you didn't enjoy it.
It's not even storyline. It's more like almost messaging because it's trying to say things that are worth saying. Like Michael Moore had this whole thing he posted, I think it was on Facebook, on how great the movie is because it's talking about pharmaceuticals and mental illness and all this stuff. I'm like, but see, now I'm going to ruin things for you. I won't. I'll be very brief. It doesn't really talk about those things. It's like it mentions them. It's like the movie equivalent of like virtue signaling. Like, yeah, it's about mental illness and he's getting off his meds because they don't have the funding, which is the opening scene. It's not a spoiler. Mm-hmm. But the movie's not really about that. And if it is about that, it's about that in a negative way. But I'll stop there.
Gotcha.
But now I'm afraid, is this the show where I'm going to put all that random energy that doesn't go into Mandalorian Time Machine? Because it just talk about the Joker. Why not?
You know, I'd be worried though with the name Mandalorian Time Machine only because now with the series on Disney Plus called The Mandalorian.
I know.
It'll either drive more people to listen and go, why aren't you talking about bounty hunters in the Star Wars world?
Well, I could certainly talk about that show too.
You could. So
I would take advantage of that.
Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Well, I do have one actual question for you that I meant to get to 2 episodes ago.
Okay.
You're doing you're doing Gene Wilder movies. So arguably your clips for your intro were easy. You took, I forget the exact Dreams line. That's from Willy Wonka, right?
That's from Willy Wonka.
And then you have music come in, which is good music. I don't know if you got that made or you stole that from somewhere. If you stole it, don't admit it here.
It's an instrumental version of the Beastie Boys, Sabotage.
Oh, okay. And then the sports line
From Blazing
Saddles. The It's Alive from Young Frankenstein. So it's all like obvious lines of Gene Wilder.
Well, it's also, it ties into our logo, which we agreed when we started talking about how we would sort of brand the show.
Mm-hmm.
Gene Wilder's got a lot of really good movies.
Yeah.
When we start thinking about his iconic roles, you always come up with one of those 3. It's either Blazing Saddles, where he played, the Waco Kid. It's Willy Wonka. Everyone thinks of him as Willy Wonka for the most part. Or Young Frankenstein. So I purposely chose clips that would invoke the same imagery that we were using in our logo.
Okay. But you're not doing Willy Wonka.
Not yet.
Because someone did it already, right?
Yeah. I wanted to be
a
few seasons removed from the Everlasting Minute.
Yeah.
And partially, I've said this on a couple of other episodes, where Blazing Saddles is my favorite movie that Gene Wilder's in because of all of the other things that go with that movie, what it was trying to say at the time, what I still think it's saying today. My favorite character is Willy Wonka. I think that performance is the Oscar performance that he never got. He should have gotten for playing that role. And I kind of want to push it off because I feel like once I do it, all the other movies aren't going to be as big as that movie. No matter how good they are, they're never going to be that role. And so part of it is that fear of what happens when you've done the best role Gene Wilder's ever done, in my mind.
Yeah, then what do you talk about after?
There's a lot of really good movies, but will I have that same energy? I know I will, but I kind of want to save that as a treat for maybe the 5th season, maybe the 6th, just somewhere where, something to shoot to.
You have an announcer. Who's the announcer?
I got my wife to do that. I wanted a female voice.
Oh, that is her.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew whether it was going to be her or someone else, I knew it needed to be a female voice because with 2 male hosts and knowing that it's an area that, podcasting, is finally showing growth in female numbers. I did a news story, not too many weeks ago that shows most of the newer podcasts, the majority of them are female hosts with female topics or topics that may be more female oriented, which I think is fantastic because I'm learning a whole lot about women, which is fantastic. But I just felt like we had 2 guys that are going to be talking the whole time. I didn't want to introduce myself. It would be weird for us to share each other, now introducing Walt and Walt goes, here's Alan. It would be kind of goofy. So I thought, let's just get a female that can come in with a really good, solid delivery and just introduce the show. And then I knew we were going to get female guests, and I was so happy that season 2, we were able to double our female guests from season 1. A lot more of the women that I approached were more comfortable, ironically, talking about Blazing Saddles than Young Frankenstein. I think maybe a lot of people knew of Young Frankenstein, but they weren't as comfortable dissecting Young Frankenstein. Where Blazing Saddles, there's so much you can say about it, even if you're not talking about the minute. And I think that's why those episodes are even so much longer. I have a feeling season 3, our episodes will scale back in length because there's not as much social commentary going on with every episode.
Right.
And part of that is being open to the format, kind of shifting with the audience and the topics. And I just love having multiple voices, backgrounds, education, life experiences. I think that just helps when you get done with an entire season. When you've got all those different voices adding, it really helps flesh out, kind of an image of what you're talking about when it comes to that movie.
Well, it's like circling back to Dave Made a Minute again. I got my daughter to do the opening announcement. Even though most of the episodes were then her introducing me so that I could introduce whoever was going to be on the episode. Because I wasn't in the middle of the episode.
And can I be honest? I really liked that.
I wasn't sure when I started it, but then I liked it because the whole point of the show was, like you just said, multiple voices all coming at the same thing. And so it worked in the introduction too, of having that announcer bring in the host who isn't even going to be in the show.
And maybe it's because we've all been unconsciously trained when we're watching shows or listening to other maybe more produced, maybe much more well-funded shows. There's always like a third voice or a third person. Even when we go see trailers, you don't see the actors doing the voiceover in their trailers. They have a voiceover person,
voiceover
right?
people.
So, it just kind of, maybe it just triggers that gives the impression to the audience that, oh, okay, these aren't, just, you might be two jackasses just sitting at the table with the tape recorder, but it fools the audience, at least at first, that, oh, maybe this is like a real show,
Yeah.
And so anything we can do to put that little extra bit of polish, a little bit of extra shine, I mean, why not? We're not live, we're produced, so why not?
Well, it's like even my shows by myself. Like, I think the intro to Mandy Sucks Minute is probably one of the best things I produced in this, year and a half of podcasting. Because it's layers of music, 2 different songs, sound effects, voices, and then I come in as it's fading out. And it works for me every time, and it's hilarious, especially because it's a little bit longer than a minute. But I've had episodes where the content was shorter than the intro.
Well, see, it goes back to what I was talking about, why I don't mind doing the editing, because to me, that becomes the creative process. Mm-hmm. It's not just getting rid of ums and ahs. Now I'm crafting the listening experience, whether it's the intro music, adding a soundbite, layering something, bringing something else in that can help supplement. And that becomes, more than just a live show now. Now you're really producing an episode of something.
Right.
And I love that element of what we do with our podcasts.
Yeah. Which is often the podcasts I like more than others, is the ones that feel like they added something later rather than just talking about it. Conversation is interesting with certain groupings, and it's fine, but that's why I like your show. You include clips when you need to. So I was curious how you approached it, and I got something from you, so that's good.
Good deal. Well, anytime, buddy. Anytime you want to chat with me or whatever else, let me know. If you want to get Walt sometime and have a bunch of nonsense for about 20 minutes, that's cool too. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Walt. You know what I mean?
Now, pretty soon we'll be talking about Tristram Shandy, a cock and bull story, 1 minute at a time.
Tristram's hand shandy, huh?
Yeah. One more time for the listeners. Alan, where can they find, The Wilder Ride is what we're promoting here.
Oh, thank you. You can find us at thewilderride.com is the website. From there has the links to every other place you would want to go, whether it's the podcatcher of choice, whether it's social media. Want to learn who our guests are, read about their bios, go back and re-listen to minutes with some of your favorite guests if you happen to see a name you like. We even have a TeePublic store with some t-shirts and merchandise you can get, and our Patreon page if you'd like to become a sponsor. Everything's branded The Wilder Ride, makes it nice and easy. And let me use this moment to say we've got a listeners group on Facebook. There's our public page, it's facebook.com/The Wilder Ride. But if you see a little join group button, we have a closed, or now they're calling it private, listeners group. And we have such fun conversation in there. It's people who want to add anything about whether it's Gene Wilder or entertainment or something they read in the news that's funny. It's no news, not in the sense of politics. It's a politics-free zone. It is kind of all the hot button topics. Just leave those outside. There's plenty of other places for that. We talk about movies and entertainment and silly things that are happening, and it's a lot of fun to just have chats with our listeners, and it's a chance to literally chat with me and Walt. A lot of shows, they're so big you never get a word in edgewise or you never get to talk to the host, but hey, we're not quite there yet, so we'll respond to you.
Yeah, it's a great group, great show. And I guess since I still don't have an intro or an outro, I could promote the fact that this show also has a Facebook page, Cock and Bull Minute, a Tristram Shandy story. I think I said it right that time. Huh, cool. And a group with no one in it but me so far, because the show doesn't exist yet, which I believe is just called a Cock and Bull Pub. Yeah, Cock and Bull Pub. And eventually we'll be having conversation there, I hope. In the meantime, you can find all of my other stuff at lemmingdrops.com. I've been Robert Black. Thank you for listening to this. I guess it's going to be a trio of episodes. Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome, buddy. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to get the stink eye here when I said 15, 20 minutes, and we've doubled that. But if you need any time, buddy, hit me up. I enjoy this.